Good afternoon. Let me take a moment to tell you what you already know, and that is, in the event a fire alarm sounds, please remain in the auditorium and stay seated. Should there be a need to evacuate, a Springmore staff member will direct you on how to leave in an orderly fashion. Please remember not to use the elevators and go to the red pole once outside. If you have not already done so, please take that few seconds to pull that cell phone out of your pocket or out of your purse, and please turn it off so it will not interrupt our speaker as he is making his presentation this afternoon. I would like to call this meeting of the Residents Association to order and welcome you to the fourth Residents Association meeting of 2025. It's really great to see you. We have filled this auditorium again, and that just really makes me ecstatic to see that we're producing a quality of program that causes you to want to come and hear and participate. We also hope that there's a lot of you watching on 1341. Thanks to Carrie Ritchie, who's recording again today. Remember that all the broadcasts are live streamed and also recorded. And so if you happen to miss one, you can always see it later on 1341, or on the resident portal, excuse me. I would like to ask at this time if we have any new residents who are attending a Residents Association meeting for the very first time. If you are, please raise your hand. Any new residents who are attending for the first time? Okay. I don't see any hands being raised, so I presume that means none. If you're watching on 1341, welcome to Springmore. Hope next time you'll actually come to the meeting. At this time, I want to introduce Brad Dilday, who's going to say just a word to us, please.
Thank you, Mr. Bundy. I'll be very brief, and since Ms. Smith established last month that I don't offer any humor, I'll make sure to pass it on quickly. But I did just want to clarify, I know my memo last week about the chiller replacement over at South Village, I forgot a very important word that said South Village. So there was some confusion when it said both buildings. That meant Creedmoor and Valley Building. This North Village will have air conditioning throughout the week. It'll just be at South Village. They've started disconnecting everything today. The crane will be on site tomorrow. So entrance 1, 3, and the portico, that whole driveway there will be shut down, but you'll be able to go around the back of the building by entrance 5 or take the first left and go around if you need to get back behind Valley. So you'll still be able to come and go. You just can't use those front entrances. So hopefully everything goes smooth and we'll have the air back on by Thursday and Friday. Yes, ma'am. You just want, so those first few spots across kind of by the portico and coming up, if you need to leave tomorrow, I would move your vehicle tonight because you won't be able to come and go from there. So just that's a personal, if you need to get out, I would go ahead and move your vehicle somewhere else. All right, any other questions? All right, thank you all. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Brad. I'll now call Carrie Ritchie to the podium, and she has a very important announcement she wants to make.
Good afternoon. This is lovely. This is a thank you and a congratulations from our Pump It for Parkinson's last Thursday. We had 194 residents and staff participate, and our goal, as some of you know, was 200,000 steps in a day, whether that was on a machine or walking or tracking yourself. And if you looked at your flyer, you will know that we crushed that goal, and we had a total of 722,390. So congratulations. So keep up the good work.
Thank you, Carrie. It's now time for the program portion of the Residents Association meeting, so I recognize our Vice President, Barbara.
That was a sad clap. What a delight to see so many. Thank you for coming out. Today we have Dr. Charles Petty, who is a professional motivational speaker was reared in the farming communities of England and Stuttgart, Arkansas. He learned about family. Am I all right? He learned about family formally and was educated in Arkansas, Mississippi, and Texas for 22 consecutive years, which means he's either well educated or a little slow. Dr. Petty has been a counselor, a visiting professor on the staffs of large corporations in Texas and North Carolina, and for 7 years was on the senior staff of the North Carolina governor. He is founder and president of Family Success Unlimited, and since 1985, all he does is eat and speak and sleep. Charles learned about the importance of family from the School of Hard Knocks. His parents divorced when he was just 6. His mother died 3 years later, and he then lived in a blended family. When he was 16, his father, who was a speaker himself, and younger brother were killed in a car accident. He lived by himself for a year and then became a foster child. Charles has spoken enough to earn the designation Certified Speaking Professional from the National Speakers Association. That same organization thought Dr. Petty spoke so well it elected him into its CPAE Speaker Hall of Fame. Along with such legends, listen to this: Art Linkletter, Zig Ziglar, Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, Earl Nightingale, and Gene Robertson. Dr. Petty is married and has 3 daughters. No, he has 2 children, 6 grandchildren, and a grand dog. And I asked him today, I said, "Do you have a dog here?" And he said, "It's my grand dog." I introduce you to Dr. Petty. Enjoy.
Well, I thought I was going to discover some children I didn't know I had, but thank you very much. When Barbara asked me to do this speech, I said, "Barbara, I'm retired." She said, "Good, that means it's free." I said, "Well, now the other dilemma is I live with these people, and I go out and speak somewhere, I screw up, I just get on an airplane, go home. I can't do that at Springmore. I screw up here, I have to live with you people." Barbara said, "There's a simple solution." "What is it?" "Don't screw up." Well, I am delighted to be here, and I thank you very much for letting me come. I'm going to do something I don't normally do because I do live among you. I did start school at Mississippi State University, majoring in chemical engineering. Made the mistake of taking qualitative analysis and 5-hour calculus course the same semester. That's when I felt the call to preach. So I became a Baptist preacher. I was ordained at 19, pastored a church in the Ozark Mountains. I am living proof God does not kill heretics. What I said at 19 was just awful. In fact, it was so bad the church gave me the pulpit and said they were either going to get rid of it or burn it. So it's downstairs in my storage unit. Well, we have been here in Raleigh since 1973. We began a 50-year friendship with Judd and Joe Ellen and Marshall and Francis. In fact, many of you in this room I've known 40, 50 years. So we really have been deeply rooted in Raleigh and even in Springmore. In fact, I told Beth when we moved here, we ought to get a prize for the shortest move. We moved from Winchester Lake across the street to here. Door to door, it's 630 yards. Well, we are delighted to be here. The handout, I told Barbara, the problem, that's an old picture. She said, well, most people can't see well anyway. And if they look at the picture in you, they'll just think you had a hard night. Well, when you start talking about me, obviously I am from the South. I have a Southern accent. How many of y'all are not from the southern part of the United States? Wow. Okay, all you people have a problem. And it is, you don't talk right. What do you think when you hear us from the South talk? What have you already decided about me? Well, he kind of dumb, isn't he? What I find intriguing, though, everywhere I would go outside of the South, people would say to me, you've got an accent. Like they don't. Everybody has an accent. Your accent is your mother's voice. You leave home, you will sound strange to other people. Well, also I am from Arkansas. What went through your mind when you heard that? Yeah, does that man know President Clinton? Well, I do. In fact, it was when President Clinton was 10 or 11 years old, I was his rifle instructor at a Boy Scout camp. You're looking at the man who taught President Clinton to shoot straight. Probably ought to give him one of my sex speeches, but I was 16 years old at the time. Everything I knew about sex was hearsay. Well, obviously, we're all different. Families are funny, different, and important. Now, I don't want to make you feel guilty today. There are no perfect families. None. Although I do remember hearing a minister preaching a sermon using that text, there's none perfect, no, not one. He said, if you think you're perfect, please stand up. About halfway back in the congregation, a woman stood up. Sister Jones, by standing up, are you saying you are perfect? Oh, no, she said, I'm far from being perfect. Reason I stood up, I thought someone ought to represent my husband's mother. Well, how many of y'all have a family member that's just strange? How many of you have a family member that just brightens up a family reunion by not attending? Well, we all have skeletons in our closets. You know, I know. Now, when you start talking about family, how many of y'all came to Springmore as a couple? Usually, if you do, there's one who's a dragger and one who's a draggee. How many of you have more than one child? You have two or more children. Usually, there's one child who is so glad to get rid of you. And you're going to be taken care of. And then there's another one who's always mad that you're spending their inheritance. Well, how you do family depends on several things. One, whether or not you're married or single, whether or not you have children, what season of life you happen to be in. How many of y'all are single? Okay, we have a lot of single adults. By the way, it's not easy being single, particularly a single man. I had a guy tell me the other day, being single is not what you married guys think. He said, it's tough being a single man. He said, I get up and all by myself, I have to make my own bed, carry out the trash, wash dishes. A month later, do it all over again. Well, did you know 46% of all adults in this nation are single? We're not all married. And that gap's getting more narrow all the time. And soon, married people will be in the minority. Marriage. Well, seasons of life. You remember when we were young, how many of y'all were burning the candle at both ends? Of course, the problem, you couldn't afford any matches. And then all at once, we're going to live on love. You remember those days? Well, the problem with that is it caused children. So the next thing you know, we've got children. I like what one woman here told me. She has 6 children. There's a gap between number 5 and number 6. One of her older children said, Mom, is our younger brother, was he unplanned? She said, all 6 of you were unplanned. I met a woman in Virginia who was one of 22 children. They all had the same mother and father. There were no multiple births. I thought maybe they should have bought a TV. Well, obviously, you turn around, you start becoming middle-aged. Now, what is middle age for a man? 38. A man's half dead at 38. Women live a little longer, so they get a few more years before they're half dead. Tell you what I did discover at middle age. I discovered your body starts going. How many of you discovered at that age your body started moving right toward your shoes? See, I looked in the mirror and thought, Charles, you're starting to look old. I thought, I'll package myself young. Do y'all have young clothes? I do. I unbutton my shirt down to my navel. Put 10 pounds of gold chains around my neck. I even bought a chest toupee. Don't wear those on the golf course, they're hot. Well, here's what I also discovered about being middle-aged. I discovered women do not cook for husbands. Women cook for children. Every man discovers when his last child leaves home, he can forget about eating. My wife's idea of a gourmet meal, 3 cereals in the same bowl. Well, the next thing you knew, you were becoming old. Now, what is old? Well, that varies, but generally you can tell you're old when as you bend over to tie your shoe, you ask yourself if there's anything else you can do while you're down there. How many of you are at that stage of life where you take naps in order to get ready for bed? How many of you cannot put on your underwear without sitting down? You know you're getting old. Here's what I discovered about old people, and I'm one of y'all. I was born in 1940, so I know this crowd. See, I discovered 2 or 3 things characterize our generation. One, our crowd is hard of hearing. Somebody put that on me because they're hard of hearing. My wife and I'm hard of hearing. We're at that stage of life, we're having some very interesting conversations. And the problem is, old people tend to hear what they want to hear, not what's said. There was a geriatric physician, had a man come in 90 years old, said he examined the old man, not much worked right on him, particularly his hearing. He yelled what he had found, yelled what he wanted the old man to do. Said it was not 2 weeks later, he's at the country club having dinner. Looks up out on the dance floor. There's the 90-year-old man on the dance floor, dancing up a storm, going crazy with a young bombshell. Physician said, I couldn't believe it. Got the old man off the dance floor. Said to him, what on earth are you doing? Just what you told me to do, Doc. What on earth did you hear me tell you to do? You told me to get a bad hot mama and be cheerful. No, he said, I said you've got a bad heart murmur, be careful. Well, the other thing that happens with our generation, our crowd develops fuzzy memories. I was reading about a great-grandfather. His great-granddaughter had a baby, so he goes to visit to meet the new baby. He and his great-granddaughter standing at the changing table. She's changing the baby's diaper. They watch for a few minutes. Finally, he said, well, darling, what do we have, a boy or a girl? She said, Grandpa, what's wrong with your eyes? He said, oh, my eyes are fine. It's my memory that's gone. So obviously things change. And also I discovered our crowd, we steal a lot. How many of you, when you eat out with your friends, how many of you are embarrassed by how much they steal? You take the pink ones, I'll take the blue ones. So you look in the purse of most 85-year-old woman, it's lined with saran wrap. And most of their purses smell like rolls. I was eating in the grill. I look over and I kid you not, a woman was taking the big bottle of ketchup and putting it in her purse. You're supposed to steal the little packets, not the whole thing. Well, we have signs all over Springmore. Whoever stole the pieces of the puzzle, bring them back. Whoever stole the cover off the scooter, bring it back. Well, my mother-in-law had to go into a nursing home when she was 90 years old. Dementia. She didn't like me very much, so she gave me power of attorney, which means I had to make all the decisions that made everybody mad. So the director of the nursing home called one day and said, well, we finally figured out why we're running out of silverware. Why? Well, we visited your mother-in-law's room. We discovered in her pillowcase, under the mattress, in every drawer, under the bed, 57 sets of silverware. Our crowd steals an awful lot. Well, when you start looking at all that, you say, well, what is happening to all these people? Well, we're senior adults. We get away with some stuff. Well, 3 things to know. When you start stealing, what's going to happen to you? Are you eventually going to get caught? But if your mind's gone, you don't know you're stealing. Well, in any event, children. Children radically impacts how we do family. You remember preschoolers? Were y'all just tired all the time? Do 3-year-olds just beat you into the ground physically? When our boys were 6 and 4, they went to 5 vacation Bible schools. We don't care what these churches believe. Just take these boys for a couple of hours. When you have a 3-year-old come visit you, what are you hoping after about 15 minutes? I believe it's time for them to go home. Well, what you might want to do is practice preventive medicine. Darling, I believe I hear a cough coming on. I believe you're going to need a little Robitussin. Boy, it'll be all right. Just drink right out of the bottle. Take a big swig. Oh, you can trust Granny. Well, then we go into elementary school. That's kind of the eye of the storm. That's the lull. Then the bomb goes off called puberty, and they become teenagers. 13 to 15 are what I call the cave years. Worst time of anyone's life, period. They go in a cave, eat. They don't come out except to eat, change clothes, ask for money. And when they do come out, they're mad. At that stage, parents do nothing right. I was sitting in church, my arms folded across my chest. At that stage, my 13-year-old son leaned over, whispered, he said, Dad, don't sit there like that with your arms folded. You look stupid. Well, excuse me. Obviously, it's a tough time. Now, puberty goes off earlier than 13. I know that. What is puberty now for a girl? 8 to 9 years of age. I was working in another state. I met a 21-year-old grandmother. She birthed at 10. Her daughter birthed at 11. Now, boys wait another year or two before the bomb goes off in them. Puberty, very interesting. Now, men, I think we have been falsely accused of being the sexual aggressors on each end of the generational spectrum. Who are the sexual aggressors? Well, if it's not men, whom does that leave? I believe I need to give y'all one of my sex speeches. Well, it's you women. See, what's happening with these 8, 9-year-old girls? What are they starting to do? They call day and night, hitting on our little boys. And they have 0 hormones in their body. Now, what's happening on the other end of the generational spectrum? 80-year-old widower. What's going on in front of his house? Oh, there's gridlock. All those dear little widows out there circling. And cars filled with casseroles. Well, teenagers, that's a whole different ball game. If you survive that time, they go to college. I have two sons, they both went to college. Older son graduated with a degree in political science. Looked hard, came home, couldn't find a job. Dad, there's no demand for a degree in political science. Son, I believe we had this conversation 4 years ago. Well, he's a good boy, smart boy, did graduate work, NC State. What would you guess his graduate work was in? Political science. Oh, yes, son, just keep digging that hole deeper. Well, our younger son was a super nice young man, but he had a learning disability. He could not get into a real college. He graduated from Clemson. Well, the business management major, he came home, but he didn't stay long. After 2 or 3 weeks, he said, Dad, next week, Donnie and I are going to be leaving to go look for work. That year, Raleigh was voted the #1 business community in the entire United States of America. Jeremy, where are you and Donnie going? Key West. Oh, yeah, son, I believe the T-shirt people are hiring college graduates. Well, what's worse, though, than having a child is having a grand dog. How many of y'all have a grand dog? See, what happens, these college graduates, the next thing you know, they start dragging people home. People you've never seen. You don't know. You know nothing about them. You have zero veto power over the... We're in love. We couldn't help ourselves. We just fell in love. Kind of like falling in a ditch. And so the next thing you know, they start having children. Grandchildren. How many of you have grandchildren? Wow. This room's filled with people who've lost all sense of objectivity. Have you ever met an objective grandparent? No. You ever met anyone that had an average grandchild? No. That had an ugly grandchild? I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm honest about my grandchildren. I have 6. I really am. All 6 of my grandchildren are really, really ugly. Oh, it's embarrassing. I don't carry pictures on my phone. It's embarrassing. By the way, we did discover, though, there is an advantage to having ugly grandchildren. For example, Halloween. We never had to buy a mask. Well, to keep them feeling different from the other children, we'd stretch a rubber band between their ears and push them out the door. Well, grandchildren. See, we make fun of teenagers, but grandparents are the obnoxious people. I fly every week all over the nation when I was working. In fact, I've flown over 7 million miles. In all that flying, I have never, ever had a teenager sit down beside me on an airplane, say to me, hey, man, let me show you some pictures of my grandparents. You know, Grandma's been saying the cutest things this week. Well, be kind to each other who are grandparents. Well, obviously, we're back to the grand dog. My son, he and his wife bought a Jack Russell Terrier, kind of a high-strung dog. Well, to help the dog with his stress, they pay people to give the dog a massage every month. They pay people to take the dog on picnics. They pay people to take this dog on canoe rides. They had him neutered. The dog psychologist said, you really ought to consider implants for your dog. For you that don't know, they're called neuticles. The dog psychologist said, now the reason you ought to have implants is when your dog's out in the neighborhood playing with all the other dogs. They'll all look at each other. And he will feel badly about himself. And your dog will have low self-esteem. You know what's depressing about that? These are the people who are going to get half of everything I own when I die. Well, obviously, grand dog. By the way, well, I won't go there. How many of you have a dog back in your apartment? Well, a number of you. Well, I won't go there. Well, would you say those people, regardless of their family structure, would you say those who take care of their family have reasonably healthy family? Would you say they are lucky? They work hard at it. They work smart at it. The combination of all three. That's multiple choice. Yeah, I think it is a combination of all three. I think there's a lot of luck involved in life. Now, I know you Presbyterians are having a hard time, but stay with me now. There are things we cannot control. It just happens. It helps us, it hurts us. Some of us got children anybody could parent. Some of us got unguided missiles. I've also pretty much concluded marriage is luck. Well, I'll establish that point. How many of you are or have been married? Okay, most everybody. How many of you got what you thought you were getting when you got married? Okay, rest of you probably got what you deserve. But who could have known what the other person was like or would become 5, 10, 50 years later? When I married my wife 61 years ago, she was 5 feet 8 inches tall. She's now 5 feet 3. That's not the same woman I married. In fact, I'm checking with a divorce lawyer now to see if shrinkage is a grounds for divorce. Well, look, there is a lot of luck involved in life, but here's what I discovered. You got to work hard. Put nothing into your careers, what did you get out? Put nothing into your families. Put nothing into Springmore, what will you get out? Nothing. You have to work hard at it. There are no free lunches. How many of you believe there really are no free lunches? You reap what you sow. Well, you got to pay the price. Now, it's hard being family. Is it hard playing Candyland? Chutes and ladders. Listening to the same tired knock-knock joke. Going to recitals. One of my sons took piano for 4 years. I never missed one of his recitals. I worked it into my schedule. No, it's hard. I'm going to tell you, I used to go, and when my boy played the piano, I found it hard to believe that I paid money for that. Well, you got to work at it. For example, cards. Could I assume most of y'all buy cards? Birthday, anniversary, Valentine's Day, especially. How long does it take a man to pick out a Valentine's Day card for his wife? 30 seconds tops. How long does it take a woman to pick out a Valentine's Day card? 30 minutes minimum. Gentlemen, if you were picking out a card for someone who controlled 50% of everything you owned, how long would you spend picking out that card? What does a divorce cost in North Carolina? Well, how many of you men are so cheap you would take your wife down to the store and let her read the cards you would have bought had you bought one? Well, here's what I discovered. Hard work alone is not going to get it. I grew up in the cotton fields. I could work 14 hours a day in a cotton field and not make enough money to buy a hamburger. Smart work. Those who have the knowledge have the power. That's why an education is so important. That's why you need grandchildren to help you with your smartphones. See, the more you know the people you call family, the more you're able to meet their needs. Now, what kind of gifts do men value? Anything that has a motor and makes a noise. On our 5th wedding anniversary, I bought my wife a vacuum cleaner. Bad choice. Well, on our 10th anniversary, I bought her a garbage disposal. Bad choice. 20th anniversary, I took her to Spivey's Corner. A really hot, bad, buggy choice. Well, you got to meet needs. The more you know, the more you're able to meet needs. Now, for example, could I assume that most of you men are romanticists? Work with me. The answer is yes. Could I assume that on many occasions you men will buy your wives flowers? The answer is still yes. If you men were going to buy a dozen roses, birthday, anniversary, Valentine's Day, what color rose would you buy her? Well, here's your choices. Red, white, yellow, pink, peach. You men are going to buy a dozen roses. How many of you men would buy red? May I see your hands up high? Well, that's almost everyone. Who would buy white? Nobody. Pink. 1. Yellow. 2. Peach. Nobody. You women are married to a thoughtful romanticist. He says, love, I'm going down the florist to buy you a dozen roses. What color rose would you like for me to buy? How many of you women would say, well, darling, buy me red roses? May I see your hands up high? Gentlemen, look around. How many would say, love, I would like yellow roses? How many of you would? Ooh, white, pink, oh my, peach. What does this little unscientific survey tell you? No, it basically says men are stupid. In 87% of the cases, men buy red roses, 87%. But of those 5 colors, women prefer red dead last. Knowledge is power. You men come home with a dozen red roses you bought for yourself again. You give them to your wife. What do you expect her to do? Fall down on the floor, kiss your feet. So you women are standing there thinking, when will the bozo ever guess it right? Well, our chaplains tell us that confession's good for the soul. How many of you men have never asked your wife which color she prefers? Why have you not done that? So you have violated a cardinal rule in selling called qualifying the buyer. How many of you women have never told your husbands which color you prefer? You confess. Why have you not done that? He's never asked. Has that kept you from having opinions on other issues? No, see, you women are very bad about playing a game called I've Got a Secret. And if you just love me enough, you might guess my secret. Well, let me give you 2 or 3 ideas that I think are helpful no matter what your family structure is, no matter what season of life you're in. 1, say warm words. What were the 3 big ones you said all the time when you were dating, early in your marriage? I love you. Now, what are the 3 warmest words you hear? Time for bed. Do warm words make any difference? They make all the difference in the world. See, there's a little rhyme, sticks and stones may help me here now, sticks and stones may break my bones, but that is absolutely, totally wrong. We have teenagers taking their own lives. over words on the internet. How many of you grew up in a family where there were a lot of warm words, affirming words? You were blessed. The Bible calls those edifying words, words that build up. How many of you grew up with a lot of criticism? A lot of us grew up with that, correcting. Back to the nursing home in Arkansas, we were visiting Jamie's mother one time. She was probably 92, 93 years of age at this time. So after the Sunday morning service, Jamie said, "Mom, would you like for me to play 2 or 3 of your favorite hymns?" Now, we've had a piano for 50 years. I remember Jamie playing it twice. So she's down at the nursing home. She plays 2 or 3 of her mother's hymns. After she finished, what would you guess her 92-year-old mother said to her? "Dear, you need to practice more." Not thank you for driving 870 miles. Not for that was nice, that was memorable. No, warm words. Do warm things. Surveys say if you'll do 5 warm things for every negative, your chances of making it go up dramatically. But here's what. It's got to be what they value, not what you value. See, what kind of gifts do men value? The noise, the motor. What does your family value more than anything else? Back to my 40th wedding anniversary. I did it right. We were at the Greenbrier in West Virginia. Any of y'all ever been to the Greenbrier? Very nice hotel. One of these old, elegant resorts, throwback to another time and place. Now, full disclosure, I was not paying for it. I happened to be speaking to a group the night before our anniversary, so it worked out fine where they paid for it. Now, to understand this, our oldest son got married several years ago. Married a girl who's different. How many of y'all have a different son or daughter-in-law? Well, Carolyn was reared in Raleigh, but born, and all of her people come out of Buffalo, New York. Not our kind of people. Well, Jamie and I were reared Baptists. How many of y'all are Baptists? Wow, we have a lot of Baptists. Baptists come from the Greek word which means hold them under till they bubble. Well, Carolyn is Irish Catholic. Not our kind of people. Well, they got married at St. Raphael's Catholic Church. We had a wave ceremony. Wave. Well, all her family friends, the Catholics, they're sitting on this side of the church. All our family friends, the Baptists, they're sitting on this side. Priest got up, did whatever it is priests do. Well, all the Catholics understood. They all jumped up. All the Baptists are sitting over here looking at this. We don't have a clue what that man's talking about. But I think we're supposed to stand up like the Catholics. Well, now, here come all the Baptists. There go all the Catholics. I tell you what I discovered, you got to be athletic to be a Catholic. Well, after the ceremony, we had the full ceremony, 1 hour and 15 minutes. We even had communion. Tell you what I discovered about Baptists. You offer Baptists a little free wine in church, and they will run over the Catholics to get down there. Well, after the ceremony, Carolyn wanted to have a sit-down dinner and dance. Jamie and I, Baptist teenagers in Arkansas in the 50s, were not encouraged to dance. That's how you got pregnant. Well, that's what our preacher told us. Now, by the way, the Methodist girls would dance. How many of y'all were reared Methodist? Wow. See, I never dated a Methodist girl. I took no chances. Now, it is true the Baptist girls would not dance, but they would park in the cotton fields. was kind of glad I was a Baptist, but anyway. My wife said we got to make fools of ourselves at the wedding reception. We're going to have to take dance lessons. So she took. This kindled a passion in her soul. My wife is Ginger Rogers reincarnate. Now we're at the Greenbrier having breakfast. 400 people I'd spoken to the night before. We're going through the buffet line. A guy's over here playing the piano. I go over and say to him, do you know the 12th of Never by Johnny Mathis? He did. Here's $5. Would you play it? He would. He starts playing our song. My wife's in the buffet line. I go over and say to her, may I have this dance? Breakfast. 400 people eating. One couple on the dance floor. The woman's looking good. The man's an absolute klutz. But gentlemen, listen to me. For $5, I bought sainthood with that woman. Well, do what they value. Things like hugging. How many of you grew up in a hugging family? I think you were blessed. There's something bonding about hugging. These couples who walk around, even here at Springmore, holding hands, having celebrated their golden wedding anniversaries, may be saying something profound to all of us. Hug. My daddy was a hugger. Are hugging men effeminate? No. My father was a hugger. He would come in one of his trips. First thing he would do, see me as a teenage boy, hug me. My daddy was a big man, a big, burly man. When he hugged you, you remember that till his next trip was over with. My daddy was not effeminate. My father was declared an All-American 11 times. Inducted to the National Sports Hall of Fame. No one ever called him effeminate to his face and lived. But if I wonder what he thought of, I don't wonder long. My daddy hugged me. Hug him. There's something bonding about hugging. Now, we got a problem here at Springmore. Some of you don't have anybody to hug. Would any of you men be willing to volunteer? Maybe as a designated hugger. Well, Jessica, I can tell you, if anybody does that, that's the kind of man your mother warned you about. Well, we need to balance off relationships and things. What does that mean? Do you know someone who has a living room in which no one can live? You take a nap on that sofa, you'll never wake up. I wrote my doctorate dissertation on divorce. People actually divorce over tubes of toothpaste. He's a squeezer, she's a roller. How many of you fought over whether the tissue rose over from the top or under from the bottom? What difference does it make which way it rolls? Well, an engineer told me, Charles, it's 6% less friction. Are any of y'all married to an engineer? May God have mercy on your family. Engineers want to qualify, quantify, measure everything. Things are important, sure. Not more important than people. Nothing I have ever hoped to have am I willing to lose my family over. Balance off relationships and things. Well, one real advantage of moving to Springmore, we had to downsize. Jamie and I moved from a 4-story house to a 2-bedroom apartment. What did you discover when you downsized? You didn't need most of it. You could live without most of it. And the truth is, nobody else wanted your stuff. Your children don't want it. Your grandchildren don't want it. They want rooms to go. They want something from IKEA that they can use 2 or 3 years and throw away. No, things are important, not more important than people. Well, let me hit one last thing, priorities. If I were to ask you to write down a piece of paper, the most important thing in your life, what would you write down? Second most important. Third. Probably most of us would write down God. We know where lightning comes from. Second most important, family, particularly if we thought one of them might look at our paper. Third, it breaks in a lot of directions. I can look at 2 documents and tell you what really is important in your life. What are those 2 documents? Checkbook, day timer. Where time and money go, that's where your heart is. I don't care what you tell me. We state our opinions, we live our values. Where time and money go, that's where your heart is. You have to decide what's really important in life and let some other very good things slide. In the 1970s, we talked about the total woman. You women can have it all. Can women have it all? No. And neither can men. Never have, never will. You got to decide what's important, do that, and let some other things slide. Jim Epps at one time had the largest, most successful YMCA program in America, Indian Guides. I was in 2 tribes at once. Every Thursday night of my life's committed to Indian Guides. On one occasion, the governor called, 6 in the afternoon. I want you to ride to the airport with me. When? 6:30 tonight. Governor, I can't go. Why? I have a meeting. When? 7 o'clock. Where? North Raleigh. Can't you be late for your meeting? No, sir, I can't be. Can't you reschedule? No, sir, I can't. What was my meeting? Indian Guides. Now, you don't tell the governor you're going to go sit in a circle with feathers on your head. See, but I know at some point he's not going to be governor again. But that is going to be my son forever. And he'll remember whether I was there or not. You have to decide what's really important, do that, and let some other good things slide. If you don't make your family a high priority, who will? You don't make it a high priority today, you may not have a tomorrow. You heard in the introduction, when I was 5, my parents divorced. I learned the hard way about family. My father got involved with another woman and blew our family sky high. Adultery is not all fun and games for those who get left behind. So here's my mother trying to rear children. A 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old. Problem, she's dying of pancreatic cancer. So when I was 9, she in fact died. So now I go live in a blended family. Right before the 10th grade, my father decided he was leaving his wife, so he said. So he moved us back to our hometown. 2 days later, he said, well, he had made up and now he was moving back, leaving us there by ourselves. My sister said, well, to heck with that, I'm going to get married. She asked if she could drop out of school and get married. She did, doomed her forever. After a couple of months, I think my younger brother, I was 15 at the time, he was 12, got tired of my cooking. So he went back to live with our father, leaving me by myself. So in the 10th grade, I lived by myself. I learned early in life, you cook, you eat. You don't. You don't. Then when I was in the 11th grade, my father and 13-year-old brother left Arkansas to go to Iowa on a business trip. Never came home. Car wreck. We buried him on Christmas Eve. The best of times, the worst of times for me. So I'm now an orphan. I became a foster child. What did I learn early about family? They can come and go very quickly. If you don't make it a high priority, when will you do that? Families are funny, different, and very important. I'll close with this illustration. My wife was home one day over in Quail Hollow. The doorbell rang. Little girl with her 3-year-old brother, little neighborhood girl, and she said, hi, Mrs. Petty. We're pretending we're married. My husband and I are out visiting with our neighbors. May we come in and visit with you? Well, Jamie was just captivated. Well, of course, please come in. Southern people are polite. Are Southern people more polite than Northern people? More civil, more genteel? Of course we are. But now here's something you northern people need to understand. Just because southern people are polite, that is absolutely no sign we mean it. When we say, y'all come see us, don't. Well, Jamie put him on the sofa. Y'all like some refreshments, hot summer day. He did. Cookies, lemonade. Said this little 3-year-old boy gulped his lemonade down. Would you like a second glass? Little boy did. Gulped his lemonade down. Jamie said, well, would y'all like a third glass? Little girl said, no, thank you, ma'am. We had to be going now. My husband just wet his pants. Well, I had to be going now for a number of reasons. Primarily, my time is up in 37 seconds. Don't play family. Families are too important. Take care of your family while I try to take care of mine. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I figured we all needed that laugh. Yes, yes. And what a good message. And we look forward to seeing all of you back here next month. The Stewart Health Center, the auxiliary, is going to show different committees with that, which I think will be very interesting. They're going to show some film. They're going to tell what they do. And hopefully some of you will help with the Stewart Health Center, and we can all do something. Thank you very much, and I'll give it back to Jim.
Thank you, Barbara. All right, let's do some door prizes. Charles, if you'll pick a blue ticket.
Somebody willing to split with me?
Oh, my gosh.
Is it you?
The last digits are 0153. 0153. All right, now, if you'll pick a red ticket. Oh, these are a little bigger. They're easy to read. The red ticket is 026534. 026534. Way over there.
All the way over there.
I want to thank you again, Charles, for that very entertaining program that you gave us. I want to thank all of you residents for attending the meeting, and we look forward to seeing you at our next meeting, which is Monday, May the 12th at 3 o'clock. This meeting is now adjourned.